one of the brothers, Judah, even offers his life in exchange for Benjamin. Judah explains how this is going to destroy our father if we don't return with the boy. But nothing will change Joseph's mind. The situation appears to be hopeless, but our Lord is the God of all hope, and he is just getting started. We have now reached the pinnacle of Joseph's healing journey, the crisis of his will, the moment when his heart will finally be changed. Turn over now to Genesis 45, just a few chapters. Genesis 45. And I'll pick it up in verse 1. And then Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, "Have everyone leave my presence." So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household heard about it. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still living?" But his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified at his presence. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come close to me." And when they had done so, he said, "I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt." At the very moment when hope arrived for healing, this moment when Joseph couldn't control himself, when he gave up his pride, when he stopped trying to be God, that's when hope arrived. That's when he could begin to hear God and receive his healing. And there are your blanks. Gave and stopped. He gave up his pride and he stopped trying to be God. Instead of operating out of his pride, which he'd been doing all those months, he chose God to be his provider, his protector, his source of power. The moment when God could finally do the needed restoration work in Joseph. And there are your blanks: provider, protector, and power source. Joseph finally was ready to let God have those roles in his life. So remember this: the sooner I come to the end of my controlling ways and start doing it God's way, the sooner I will heal. Joseph gave up his self-power and revealed his identity to his brothers. He forgave his brothers and received them back into his heart. He released them from their horrible offenses against him. He did not say it was good what they did to him. He did not say it was okay what they did. In fact, he said the opposite in Genesis 50:20. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what's now being done, the saving of many lives. Joseph is saying, yeah, it was a bad deal, but God is nevertheless doing something good for all of us. Joseph is now seeing things the way God sees things. He understands that God has been working in his life and in his family's life all along. He even goes so far as to tell his brothers not to be too hard on themselves. That's grace. Back in chapter 45, verse 5 says, "And now do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you." That's grace in action. His brothers didn't deserve that. But Joseph's a free man now, because he's given it up to God and letting it be God's problem. So he can be gracious. He opened his heart to his family and renewed his love and his relationship with them. And then he even went beyond reconciliation. He brought great blessings to his family, bringing them down to Egypt, giving them the best land. Joseph was providing for his family and saving them from starvation. This was true reconciliation. Verse 14 and 15 says, "Then he threw his arms around his brother Benjamin and wept. And Benjamin embraced him weeping. And he kissed all his brothers and wept over them. Afterward his brothers talked with him." What a wild ride this has been for Joseph all these months. But because he ultimately surrendered his control to God and stopped holding on to his wounds, which is our natural human tendency to hang on to our wounds, Joseph is a free man now. Joseph is healed. Joseph was not perfect. None of us are. But eventually, he chose obedience. God gave, because he chose obedience, God gave him the thing he most wanted. He got his father back, which comes in a later chapter, and his brother Benjamin. He got his family back. Joseph finally made the decision to stop preserving his wounds by staying in control and let it all go and allow God to remove the wounds out of his heart and mind. We think we are protecting our wounds by staying in control all the time, but we're not protecting anything. We are preserving our wounds. We are keeping them alive and toxic. Remember this, your hard feelings will not destroy you. You will survive your healing season. And there are your blanks, destroy. Your hard feelings won't destroy you and survive. You will survive your healing season. Don't settle for the counterfeits. Withdrawal, hiding, power, control, manipulation, revenge. They're all counterfeit solutions. Go God's way and receive a real solution, one that sets you free. God healed Joseph's life and restored his heart. I hope you will all choose to do the same thing. So before we go on to groups, take a break, go ahead and complete your impact statement.